bring us up to date. You're dealing with some injuries at this point, and in addition to the fact that you're without Nikita Kucherov for the regular season following surgery, yet despite concerns about a Stanley Cup hangover, you guys are off to an even better start this year than last year. How do you explain that?
Winning helps, and we've had some great years without winning a Stanley Cup, and it's a hard league to win in. And once you get to the tournament, anything can happen. And we finally kind of pushed ourselves over the edge last year. But once you do that, like there's this confidence that comes around your group that says, okay, hey, we know how to win. We know the recipe that works, and you just kind of carry that in. And it's funny that Stanley Cup hangover. It's weird because you don't sit there and say, hey, it's wins and losses. That judges that. It's the mindset of your team. And are you going into games saying, hey, we're just going to win on talent alone? Or are we really giving our best and working our hardest? And so that's what I've been judging our group on. And so far they've done an excellent job. But I truly believe it's the pedigree of winning. The guys know how to do it that just can keep you elevated at a high level.
We are talking to Jon Cooper. It's such an interesting response, and I kind of want you to elaborate on that if you would. For instance, the Stanley Cup hangover can be a real thing. For instance, other coaches who've attempted to repeat have talked about moments in the season after the Cup where it felt like their players were zombies. They're staring back, and they've got nothing left in the tank because they exercised so much. How would you describe then, and I know you touched on this, but the attitude and the mindset from your players so far this season?
Well, it's actually been great. The difference this year is COVID has really changed things. It's just the dynamic of the league. There's so many protocols, so many things that are different in this year. It's kind of put a little twist on it where as our group is together, we've really latched on to that we've been here before, we've done this before, other teams haven't. We've got to keep this going. Like, this is momentum for us. We've been in spots that other teams haven't been. And the one other big thing is, too, Nikita Kucherov, you can make an argument for about 4 or 5 guys in this league to say, hey, they're the best player in the world. And I think you could throw him into that mix. And so without him, now you have this added extra urgency of, hey, our big gun's not here. Like, guys got to pick up the slack. And I know, Stamkos has come back, and he's a little on the shelf right now, but hopefully he'll be back soon. But when your talented players are out, it really throws an urgency into the players, and so far the guys have really responded.
We're talking to Jon Cooper. So we talked about the players now. John, what about from a coaching standpoint? The story goes that you spoke with Joel Quenneville, now the Panthers head coach, about the success that he had in Chicago and the way he went about dealing with that and with the team. What was your takeaway from that conversation, and what did you learn from him in that process?
Well, I've talked to Joel a ton, and throughout the years, he's an unbelievable guy to talk to, and winning has followed him everywhere. To sit here and look back, and even though I called him a little bit of a hog when they beat us in 2015, since that was his 3rd ring and we hadn't had one yet.
Right.
He's willing to share like his experiences, and it's been uplifting to me for somebody that's still in the league, willing to share what he went on or what went through him, and he's really, you got to let the players play. And it was almost a situation where, sometimes the less you do, the better. You got to give the players some responsibility. You have to trust that they're veterans and let their leaders and let them figure things out. And once they have, it really becomes, like kind of a team collaborative coaches, players effort that, hey, we've been in this situation before. You don't need to tell me what to do. I know what we're doing here. And once these guys have the confidence in you, like the team almost starts coaching itself. And I think we really felt that last year when we were in the bubble in the playoffs.
So sometimes less is more. Jon Cooper is joining us. That said, though, John, a lot of people who have worked with you and have played for you talk about your special sauce, the thing that makes you different, the thing that makes you successful. You were recently asked about the secret to your success, and I thought you had a great response. Quote, 1, understanding life, 2, a loyal dog, 3, a good goaltender. Now, you and I have talked about your relationships with your players in the past. But what does understanding life, when you say that, what does that mean to you, and how important is that to everything that you do?
Okay, so here's going to be the caveat to that statement. The guy actually wrote it wrong.
Okay.
Because it's actually supposed to be, you have to have an understanding wife. You heard me say.
Funny.
Understanding wife, loyal dog, and one hell of a goalie. So
that changes the answer a little bit.
But No, it's like you have to. Part of that too is like because when I was told somebody wrote that about what I'd said, and honestly, if you really think about that, you do have to understand life. You have to understand. The one thing I say about our guys and our coaches is we're with these players 20 or 3 hours a day. Well, what are they doing the other 21 hours a day? And I think that's something. You don't want to get too involved in, but you have to care about that. And you have to care about what's going on for them because they've got a life too. And it's not just, hey, they're coming to the rink and this is, you got to do this and this. Like guys have girlfriends and wives and kids and dogs and parents and all these other things that when you go away from the rink that you have to deal with. And it's like, holy cow, these guys have the same thing. So understanding of that about your players, and especially with a group that we've had, fairly consistent core, I think it's really benefited myself and our players.
We're talking to Jon Cooper for a couple of more moments. John, I know you need to get to practice, but let me ask you this, because the other thing that does keep coming up is the fact, and I'm struck once again by talking to you right now, I can hear it, you're always looking to learn, evolve, and grow personally. I mean, it would be very easy to finally win that Stanley Cup and say, I've got it all figured out, but that's not what you're doing at all. What's driving you to keep growing, evolving, and learning?
Oh, to repeat. There's no doubt about that. It's a hard thing to do. And I know Pittsburgh has done it recently, but it is tough. And like to get to that's the big thing for me is like once you get to the top of the mountain, you can't exhale. I tell this to players all the time. Just because you've made the NHL, when I talk to rookies, it doesn't mean it's like, oh, you've made it. Exhale. Now your work is just beginning. And I truly believe in our sense. So you win a Stanley Cup. That is, don't get me wrong. Like that was one of the greatest feelings I've ever had in my life. It's euphoric, but that doesn't mean your work is done. Now it becomes like, what is the legacy for yourself and the team? Like, is the Tampa Bay Lightning going to go down can we make ourselves one of the greatest teams of the decade or the generation or something like that? And something like, you talked about Joel Quenneville, everybody says, well, Chicago, they won 3 Stanley Cups. They're looked at as one of the greatest teams of, the last how many years. And so to put yourself on that level, I think would be really real cool for our organization.
So one final thought. When you talk about legacy and history and tradition, the Buccaneers had their victory parade this week, and they followed your lead with a boat parade. What did you think when you saw that play out?
I'll tell you, I don't know. COVID hasn't brought a lot of great things to the world, but I'll tell you, we probably don't have a boat parade unless there was COVID. And it was crazy, man. Like it was the greatest. It was so cool. And so when watching the Bucs, unfortunately we were out of town, but it just conjured up all those feelings that we just had a few months ago, which were just phenomenal. And it's so proud. You feel great being from Tampa and, Tom coming to town and doing what they did. But everybody feels a part of it. And to think that we were, on those waters just 3 months ago doing the same thing was pretty cool.